Good evening. Welcome back to another live episode of Red Tinted Glasses on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. I'm sorry we are 24 hours late. I just needed to recharge my batteries. Evening, Mr. Ramirez. No, sorry, I was down with a sickness bug. Someone that is recharging their batteries, it seems, is Calum, because once again, joining me is Philip Mayer. Phil, welcome back to the show again.
Can't get the staff these days, can you? I mean,
No,
I would say I'm back by popular demand, but
well,
probably not.
It's becoming quite the occurrence having you on the show 2 and 2. Callum, I'm sure, is getting a bit hot under the collar with your appearances staying on the show. But good to have you back as we look back at the weekend's 1-1 draw with Hibernian, which saw Aberdeen secure their Premiership safety for another season. As Jim Goodwin said, it's not something worth celebrating, but I'm sure now that it's mathematically safe, something that we can breathe a huge sense of sigh of relief. The joys of a live episode. Not sure if Philip can actually hear me just now.
Oh no, there we go. You're back. You were just silent there for a whole minute, and I was like, oh, I wonder if he's saying something important.
No, I'm just saying that the fact, celebrating the fact that we are safe for another season isn't really all it's made out to be, as Jim Goodwin said.
Yeah, I mean, I said the same sort of thing last week. I think it's just kind of nice to mathematically be safe, but I mean, it's nice to just finally put this season to bed. It's just been a bit of a shambles, and it's nice that it's finally somewhat behind us. I know we've still got Wednesday and Sunday to go, but I mean, at least there's nothing really riding on them now.
No, exactly, and I suppose it allows us to make changes to the squad and maybe try out some new players. And we did see a couple of changes to the squad for Saturday's game. One of them being the omission of Calvin Ramsey, who was not included in the squad. Rested due to a niggle, was the official line from Jim Goodwin, amidst increasing interest from Liverpool, with the Daily Record reporting that a deal is set to be struck between the two sides in the region of about £6 million. I think 4 million up front, if the rumours are to be believed, with add-ons bulking up the figure. Are you surprised that Jim Goodwin took that stance not to play Calvin Ramsey amidst that speculation?
No, not at all. I mean, I know we all want more. I think a lot of people are sort of benchmarking the Patterson deal with Everton. But I mean, obviously, we'd all love to get 16 million for Ramsey. But I mean, 4 million up front and 6 million in total's a big chunk of money for a club like Aberdeen, especially with us missing out on Europe. So I'm not surprised he didn't risk him. I mean, we know that Ramsey's been injury prone this season and last. So I think kind of limiting any sort of knock-on effect to deals, it's clever. I mean, I don't think having him on would have changed the result, really. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree on that, and I suppose you kind of touched on it there briefly. What is your thoughts around the figure? It's certainly been a cause of debate on social media over the weekend, with people saying maybe the value isn't fair, or a fair reflection on Calvin Ramsey. We should maybe be holding out for more. But I think you touched on it there, and I kind of agree as well. That I think 4 million for a player who's only had one season of first team football, and I suppose that's one thing we've got to be thankful for Stephen Glass for, is giving Calvin Ramsey that chance this season. But he's played in a team that's only kept 7 clean sheets in all competitions this season, and a defender rate for that. You suppose when you look at Nathan Patterson as the player you mentioned, he's a Scotland International League winner, scored for his country as well, played in the group stages and knockouts of Europe. He's got all that going for him in comparison to Calvin Ramsey. So I think if we're getting 4 million, I think we knocked back nearly 5 from Bologna in January. It's a good amount, and I suppose I get the argument about holding out for more, but if the player is happy with the deal on the table from Liverpool, then it's difficult to hold a player back.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those things where, do you hold it out and his stock potentially drops? I mean, look at like the McKenna situation we had. I mean, what was it? Villa were rumoured to be putting in, was it like 7.5 million or something along those lines?
Yeah.
and then we got less than that from Forest by the end of it. So you run that risk. I mean, I suppose you can also then counter-argue in the fact of if he's so highly rated by Liverpool and so highly rated by us, £4 million up front, it's really pocket change for a club like Liverpool, so you would want them to offer more. And then again, I mean, I've seen people arguing, what draws the value? Okay, Patterson plays international for Scotland. He played European football, but Ramsey, I think, has got more domestic appearances. So you could argue, he's a more consistent, choice as a right back at a domestic level. So does that add more value? It's a weird one. I mean, there's probably a reason we don't get paid to negotiate on behalf of players or clubs. So I mean, I'm just quite happy we're getting something. It's not going to be another run his contract down and off he pops for pennies.
Yeah, although I'm sure some people might say, going by our current recruitment, maybe we're not bad place to get involved in contract talk negotiation deals. But the other change to the squad saw Dante Polvara, the 2021 Herman Trophy winner, make his first full start for the club, his debut in red, and by all accounts seemed to have a solid hour. Something that we talked about on the last episode when you appeared on Red Tinted Glasses, and I know an opinion that caused some controversy, us touting him, as a potential starter for next season. But as we said, by all accounts, seemed to hold his own in that midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think we spoke about this on Twitter as well. We had a little exchange about it. I mean, by no means are we saying that he's the answer. But I mean, that performance really did him no harm. From the bits that I watched on Saturday, and amongst doing other things, and what I'd read on Twitter, he seemed to be doing well. And I mean, for the options that we currently have at centre mid, outside of the sort of what you would say the starting three of Barron, McCrory, and Ferguson, he's done himself absolutely no harm in putting his name in there. He seemed to be solid enough, getting stuck in, and like I say, everyone seemed to say we were controlling the midfield. So I think that's all that we can really ask for in your first sort of actual start, coming back from injury and coming over from the States.
I suppose it's also kind of the ideal sort of time, sort of games to play him in. I know obviously there was stuff riding on that game, given the potential, depending results elsewhere, that safety wouldn't have been mathematically guaranteed. But I think given the fact that Ross McCrory is going to miss the game on Wednesday, more on that game later on in this episode, he's certainly done himself no harms in retaining that place in the starting 11 come Wednesday's trip to Perth. But I suppose, given where these two teams have been this season, both Hibernian and ourselves, it's probably no real surprise that it was quite a brutal watch at times on Saturday. And our defending hasn't exactly been great, and I think it's pretty much summed up with the way that Declan Gallagher gave away that back pass in the opening exchanges. Was it a back pass for you?
I mean, I couldn't really see. I mean, it looks like Lewis has got his hands on the ball, and it almost looks like Gallagher just tries to kick it out of them, which for a start is just, I don't really understand. But I mean, it kind of just made the ref and the linesman make a call there, and they're just going to call it how it looks, which is, it looks like Lewis has got it, then he maybe doesn't, and then it's back in his hands. So I honestly don't know what either of them thought was going to happen there. It just was, I don't know if it was just a lack of communication or what, but I seen it and I was thinking, oh Jesus. Fair play to him though, because he did put himself on the line a little bit from the resultant free kick. So I mean, I'll give him that. He did make up for it, but still.
He did, yeah, he did, and he more than made up for it later on in the game, grabbing himself an assist. But it kind of goes back to the point where we're speaking after the, looking back at the Livingston game, where Gallagher and Bates haven't exactly covered themselves in glory defensively, and we saw that slightly later on in the half when Elias Milkerson seemed to get the freedom of Easter Road. I don't know, the positional sense of both Bates and Gallagher left a lot to be desired. I think it was Harry Clark with a through ball, and Joe Lewis, we've questioned him a lot through this season. He pulled off some good saves in that Dundee game, and he pulled off a good fingertip save there from Milkerson. Maybe Hibs fans maybe thinking he should do a bit better in that scenario, but again, question marks around how poor our defence is in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things in that scenario. You can ask why Bates and Gallagher are so far apart from one another. There just seems to be a gaping hole right in the middle there. But then, I suppose conversely, you can ask why is there not a midfielder sort of screening that gap. I don't know who it was. Maybe it was Barra, and seemed to just get sucked into the ball a bit much. Even though Bates was already rushing out to the attacker. But yeah, no, the positioning there was. I don't know how it happened, really. Like I say, is it a lack of communication or what? I've got no idea, but it's weird. I think after last week I'd said, oh, maybe we should look at a new keeper to keep Lewis on his toes a bit, or, maybe even phase him out. And then it's the second week he's kind of kept us in the game for a lot of it. So I'm going to take complete credit for the resurgence of Super Joe.
Well, full credit to you for taking that credit, and obviously, evening Joe, if you're tuning in and being inspired by Phil's words, that's made you produce those performances. But a question coming in from Brian Murison on our YouTube channel, asking why the free kick that Hibs got for the pass back was taken in a better position, and that was one thing I wondered myself, actually, and I suppose
I didn't even think about that. It was pretty much on the byline.
It was on the byline, but they got to take it pretty much nice plumb on the 6-yard line. Not that it ended up making any form of difference. As you said, Declan Gallagher very much putting his body on the line and seeing the ball out for a corner. But yeah, certainly one of a few strange decisions that Bobby Madden made.
Sir Robert Madden.
Throughout the game. No real surprise though, the game goes in at 0-0, and especially when you look at our away form, Hibs safety secured and kind of maybe one eye on next season as well. But it is the Dons that grabbed the lead in the aftermath of that alleged. Well, I saw it branded on Twitter, the decapitation of Lewis Ferguson. We'll get your thoughts on that in a second. Johnny Hayes plays a good deep ball into the back post, and Declan Gallagher heads down for David Bates to sweep home. I really enjoyed how the Aberdeen website in their match report said it was like Duncan Shearer in his prime. While David Bates is a defender, I'd rather he learn to defend first rather than finishing in the manner he did.
Yeah, I mean, at this rate, if he keeps it up, I'll get DB9 on the other leg, and everyone will be happy. But I mean, fair play. I mean, both Gallagher and Bates in that scenario, clever enough to nod it back across goal, and at least Bates was calm enough to take the touch. I was having visions of him just doing a Miles story and blaring it over from 3 yards, but thank God he kept the head.
Yeah, and I suppose you said it's on the back of that incident where Harry Clark tries his best to take Lewis Ferguson's head off that saw Bobby Madden initially award a free kick to Hibs. But when watching it back, the way he's got his hand kind of raised in the air, it looks like he's signalling for offside, and then I think he thinks Lewis Ferguson's hand balled it, but he eventually does give the free kick to Aberdeen. We've spoken with VAR coming in to play next season. I just retweeted or quote tweeted off my own Twitter account the decision that Grant Irvin, who was in charge of the Livingston game a few weeks back, the decision he awarded in the League Two playoff between Cowdenbeath and Bonnyrigg, an unbelievable penalty decision. But when you start seeing these really poor decisions week in, week out in Scottish football, I'm still not in the belief that VAR is going to improve Scottish football, because these people that are making the decisions, they're going to be behind the monitors trying to help.
Yeah, no, I mean that effectively it was a Hulk Hogan big boot from Clark is the best way to describe it. I don't know how Madden somehow wasn't going to give that Aberdeen's way, and how he only got booked for it. But yeah, I've got the exact same concern as you do with VAR coming in. I wouldn't have much hope in Kevin Clancy being upstairs trying to tell Bobby Madden how to make a call, because that makes me sweat. I don't know what the solution would be. Is it to put refs full time? Is it to just totally bring them back to step one of training? Is it even bringing up some refs from down south for a little bit and getting them? Like, I don't know what the best way around it is. But yeah, no, it is. You want it in because you look at some of the decisions the past few weeks, especially even just in Aberdeen games, that have just been mental, how they've just not gone the way they're meant to. But then you also think that there's probably going to be we're probably going to have so much more debates about VAR getting things wrong at this point than what's getting right, which is just not the way it should be getting discussed.
No, absolutely, it shouldn't be, and it'll be, especially when it's only going to be introduced halfway through a season. I think just opens
Yeah,
up a whole
gives
other
half a
can.
season of bonkers decisions before we get one right. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. Yeah, and we'll see how many Old Firm games they manage to fit in before.
Squeeze in before.
um, Despite taking the lead, we didn't exactly defend admirably. Our defensive issues continue to rear their ugly head, and our lack of ability to keep a clean sheet this season continued. Lewis Ferguson getting away with a bit of poor defending. I think the game was still 0-0 at that point when he gave the ball to Joe Newell, who kind of dithered on the ball and failed to really get a shot away. But it was Joe Newell again. The ball fell to after a bit of strange defending from Funso Ojo, I have to admit, where he tried a diving header to clear the ball, and it almost works in as a great assist. But again, that man Joe Lewis, with doing what we know Joe Lewis can do, with a really good point blank save to keep Aberdeen at that point ahead in the game.
Yeah, I don't know if Finso had kind of caught word of Charlie Adam and thought, I'm going to try and one up him here, but I don't know what he thought the outcome of that was. I don't know if he maybe got a shout that Lewis was nearer and he was trying to maybe nod it back to him, but it was just, I did not understand that. But yeah, like you say, once again, Joe came up really solid keeping, just made himself as big as he could. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's happened in the past few weeks. Like I say, has it been the rumours of, Hladecki and Segrist and whatnot? Supposedly have an interest from Aberdeen that's maybe brought out a new side of him to keep his number one jersey. But I'm all for him finding his form again.
Yeah, maybe he's just putting himself out there in the transfer market again, if those rumours are to be believed, that he's not going to be getting, or he's being told he's free to leave at the end of the season. But Sylvester Jasper, who came on, was somebody I talked to Michael Moran in the preview about as a player that I've liked the look of when I've been watching Hibs this season. He seemed to come on and cause us a lot of problems, and it was his cross that led to the Hibs equaliser again. Similar in the Livingston game, the goal coming down the side, Funso Ojo, in that Livingston game, there was kind of criticism around why he didn't show the Livingston player to the byline. He kind of does that with Jasper, but then just allows him a yard of space to get the cross in. And then for me as well, I think David Bates has got to do a lot better in defending that cross, as James Scott is allowed to tower over him far too easily and knocks the ball back from McGinn to put the ball into the back of the net. And we speak about soft goals, easy goals that we're conceding has been all too familiar this season, and for me, I file it under that category again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong, the ball in from Jasper is what you'd want from your winger. If you're not going to fire it across the 6-yard box, at least hang it up for somebody near the back. But like you say, I mean, David Bates, his bread and butter for the longest time was being quite assured, and if there was a ball there, he would just head it out. And I don't know what happens. I mean, the boy Scott seems to jump so early as well.
Yeah.
Like he's in the air before the ball's even, I think, past the sort of front post, and somehow beats Bates to it. I think I'd spoke about on Twitter as well about how aerial balls this year have just seemed to cause us so much issues, which is again odd because, like I say, Bates and even Gallagher, they're known for just being able to just win things because they're both massive. So I don't know how they struggle so much with anything in the box or anything that seems to be coming over the top. But yeah, there was nothing Joe could do about the resultant shot from McGinn, but Bates definitely should have done far better at the back post.
Yeah, 100%. And it was one thing I was saying in a group chat the other day was I'm really interested to see how many goals we've actually conceded from our right hand side this season, because it seems to be almost every other game that we do. To go on the point that you said, it's a ball across into the box that we don't deal with. It always seems to be from that right hand side that we really have struggled this season.
I don't know if that's maybe to do with having, obviously we tend to play Vicente on the right, so I don't know if it's maybe to do with just having less sort of defensive awareness. Obviously you've usually got Mackenzie Hayes on the left, and they seem to hold out quite well, so I don't know if it's a case of just, obviously once Ramsey does go, try to sort of solidify that right back spot a bit more, so it's kind of less of a risk having a better attacking winger.
Yeah, and I suppose that was like a slight criticism I had of Vicente, that compared to Ryan Hedges, he doesn't do as much defensive work as Ryan maybe did in his time at Aberdeen. But I suppose that's something that we can maybe work on over the summer, getting another right back, and that's obviously something you can work on. Jim Goodwin obviously saying that, sorting the defence was going to be an easy task. Well, we're still yet to see it, but it's going to be a long summer ahead, and that's certainly got to be a priority, is fixing that. But also going to be fixing is our strike force, which we'll come on to. But it's off to Perth tomorrow night with just 2 away wins all season. And I was joined on the podcast by football betting analyst and St Johnstone fan Greg Browning to preview the game tomorrow night. Greg, welcome along to Red Tinted Glasses. Pleasure to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure.
What's not been a pleasure, I suppose, has been St Johnstone's season. I won't really get to ask you too much on how your season's gone, because I think it's fairly obvious how it's been. But I suppose what I'm interested to hear from you, Greg, is how kind of disappointed or how maybe unexpected this season has been for you and the rest of the St Johnstone fans, given the obviously success that you had, especially in the cup competitions last season.
Absolutely, yeah. I think obviously last season was what dreams are made of, essentially, to win the cup double, albeit behind closed doors, but it doesn't take it away in terms of the achievement. We're in a really strong position in the summertime. We had 2 European games, ran Galatasaray close for, I guess, a match and a half, and we ran Lask from Austria very close. And to be fair, probably should have beaten them and qualified for the Europa Conference League. Then we sold Ali McCann and Jason Kerr late in the day. So Ali McCann especially was a sore one, given the fact that we sold him for a pittance, really, £1.2 million. I'll never forget that. And it really did weaken us. And it's just been a real struggle. Nothing in comparison to last season. We've obviously only won 7 games this season. And I guess we're very fortunate that Dundee are below us. Yeah. In any typical season, we would be bottom of the league and relegated by now.
Yeah, and probably also a bonus that Dundee decided to appoint Mark McGee, but more on that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Dundee were lucky to come up last season. I don't think they were ready to come up. Dundee, they had a strong start to the season last season, came up with a first division squad, and essentially probably where we'd expected them to be come the stage of the season, being bottom, I think, because their squad I don't think is good enough.
Yeah. And it's funny just hearing you speak about that Lask, Linz and Galatasaray games. The seasons felt so long, I forgot that they were actually part of this season. And I mean, obviously, as you discussed there, Ali McCann then departing on deadline day, was, the confidence there from the European games? Because I was, very impressed with how you performed, especially over in Turkey against Galatasaray. Has the league form come as a surprise, or do you think that's down to, the way the summer transfer window ended? You guys never really had the chance to recover from that.
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. The summer transfer policy and what happened in the summertime had a massive impact. We were essentially in the strongest position we've ever been in, on and off the pitch. 2 trophies, got a really good squad, got a really good team, and that was the opportunity to kick on. And again, consolidate top 6, more European trips, do well in the cups. But I think we've got complacent. I think Steve Brown got complacent, thinking this is easy. Don't really invest in the squad as much. And we've been found out. I think, Ali McCann and Jason Kerr are captain. To lose probably 2 of your most pivotal players at that point in the season and not replace them with anyone similar standards, and to lose them, a combined fee of £1.8 million. It was a really mistake. I think that really did annoy fans at that point. We've let 2 key assets go for really under £2 million, scandalous. And we've stuck with that.
Yeah, and I think, Aberdeen fans obviously annoyed the way the club dealt with the January transfer window. And I think, as a result, we've suffered in our top 6 aspirations. So it just shows the importance of the transfer windows and affecting fortunes of both respective clubs. But I suppose before we kind of look at the game itself on Wednesday, Greg, are Saints fans kind of resigned to the fact that that is now you guys going to be in 11th in the league? You know, Mark McGee coming out with another superb quote that Dundee fans will be hating to hear, is that the fact that survival is nigh on impossible for his club after their 2-0 defeat to St Mirren. I take it St Johnstone fans don't think, you know, there's not a mass panic sweeping that Dundee are going to be able to overturn that 6 points in the goal difference as well.
I think for that to happen, Dundee obviously have to win both matches. We have to lose both matches. A 7-goal swing, it's not going to happen. And obviously, I think most fans, to be fair, months and months ago, were probably thinking, you know what, if we can get 11th, and we'll try and take care of whoever comes up playoffs. But yeah, we had a massive opportunity last weekend against St Mirren. Massive, massive game, biggest game of the season, and again, we did not show up. And match.
And I got what I deserved for putting St Johnstone on the coupon that weekend, the only side to let me down for £110.
And I was thinking to myself, we've only won 4 home games this season. We are not be backing at home, or at all, to be fair.
To be fair, I'm blaming Pye and Bovril for putting out the tweet that St Mirren hadn't scored on their last 7 visits to McDermott. I was all over that.
That's associated to that game. I think St Mirren's record in Perth is abysmal. They've only won games at 35 matches in Perth, haven't scored in 7 games. The omens were there, but we, again, were just so poor going forward, no creativity. A bit like Aberdeen, to be fair. It's a bit of a carbon copy of how you guys have done this season too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think, you know, one of the last times we previewed on this podcast a game against St Johnstone was the fact that your top goal scorer was Stevie May with 2 at one point. And I think that kind of just summed up where your season has been. But, you know, if St Mirren's record in Perth isn't one to, you know, shout from the rooftop, Aberdeen are actually unbeaten in their last 5 trips to Perth. How do you think St Johnstone, with, you know, if you're wanting to say, you know, playoffs in mind, how do you think the team approach this game on Wednesday night? Is it all about building confidence to go into that playoffs?
No, I think it'll be to get a point. Get a point and mathematically secure that. I don't think Dundee will beat Hibs at home and shoot. But there's every chance they might. But given the fact that Mark McGee's had 11 games in charge now and has won 0 matches, and to back Dundee. But if we can get a point, that is a decent point for us, keeps us away and secures at least the playoff spot for us. Going back to January, though, to your point a minute ago, we wait January to then start spending some money. We're in a real mess in January. We've recruited something like 18 players this season. We've got a massive, massive squad. 31 players in the squad, which is ridiculous. And some of the quality of the squad is just not good enough. So if we can get a playoff match and regroup, hopefully next season will be a lot better.
Well, depends what division you end up in. All being well, you never know. We might be speaking to you on this podcast again next season.
Yes.
But you'll certainly be hoping so. But I suppose when you look at, you know, wanting to get a point, probably Aberdeen are the ideal opponents to be coming up against. You know, 2 away wins all season domestically for the Dons, and just 5 clean sheets as well this season across home and away. Obviously, one of those away wins and clean sheets did come on Aberdeen's last trip to Perth, thanks to the hand of God that is Teddy Jenks. Maybe a bit of revenge on St Johnstone's mind for this game.
Yeah, possibly. It's a case of 2 tails, really. You've got a good record in Perth, and our record in Aberdeen's pretty decent. You've kind of stolen my thunder with the 2 away wins in 18 for Aberdeen this season, which is just, if you think about it, it's just diabolical, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Have 2 wins in 18.
That's why, honestly, I think, you know, so many Aberdeen fans were just glad that this fixture was not the first fixture of the bottom 6, because I think there would have been a lot of arses twitching had it been.
And I think as well, it's just 2 wins in the 16 overall for Aberdeen. The games we've played, other than Celtic, we've either got something from the game or we've lost to a goal. Don't expect there to be many goals in this game. I think I'll leave that to you in a second. But yes, a tight match, and I don't see there being many goals in this game at all.
No, I know, and I was going to say maybe should have left it to you being the betting analyst, but it's just one of the last 9 games between the two sides has had over 2.5 goals. So if anyone's looking for somewhere to maybe try and find some tips, is certainly that market. But I know you think there's probably going to be even less than 2 goals.
There's been 5 goals scored in the last 6 matches. There's been a 1-1, a 1-0, a 1-0, a 0-0, and a 1-0. I'd be stunned if there's 3 goals in this match. Possibly 2 goals, maybe, but I cannot see there being 3 goals.
I mean, to be honest, neither can I. I mean, I'd be stunned as well if there's 2, because given the fact that Marley Watkins picked up an injury on Saturday and Christian Ramirez, his form has just completely evaded him since the departure of Stephen Glass. Or as last week's guest Philip Mayer said, the fact he's not scored since he got the tattoo of CR9 on his leg, and Christian Ramirez not scoring since then. You know, the goal David Bates scored on Saturday was our first goal from open play in 3.5 games. But as you said, St Johnstone, the Celtic game is a total anomaly, really, for me. You're either picking up the odd point here. You showed that the quality to come back against Dundee. Obviously, didn't in Livingston, the late goal, but the games are tight that you've been going through recently. You know, you've actually won 3 of your last 5 at McDermott as well. I know, but is there players you feel that can cause this Aberdeen team problems? Because obviously Aberdeen's safety is now being secured. I kind of feel there's maybe going to be one eye on the summer. I know Jim Goodwin's certainly got an eye on the summer. Is there a way that St Johnstone can probably come in and take the 3 points on Wednesday night?
There's certainly a chance. I would not be a surprise if you got the result on Wednesday. Saying that though, it would not be a surprise if we lost the match 1-0. It's one of those ones. I think no result in this match will surprise anyone. But we still have to secure mathematically 11th place. And to your point a minute ago as well, we obviously want to go into the playoffs with a bit of confidence. The last thing to do is come into this off the back of 2 defeats to Aberdeen and Hibs.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a bit of a sore one, losing that late goal. But since Callum Henry came back from Kilmarnock in January, he's been a shining star and a rare ray of hope in terms of anyone scoring goals. He's been fantastic since he's come back. On a little bit of a dry patch at the moment, but I think he scored 7 goals for us since he came back. And he does look like the main threat for us in an attacking sense. But in an attacking sense as well, though, it's so hard to watch. We just don't create anything.
The term attacking sense feels like you're using it very loosely for this season.
Glenn Middleton started yesterday. He done really well for us last season. Glenn Middleton was a big part of obviously our success last season, but he's been posted missing this season. Started yesterday, scored, which is great. So if he starts, I think between him and Callum Henry, there's an opportunity there, and probably 2 of our biggest threats if they're on song that day.
Yeah, I mean, that's the 2 that I wrote down as the 2 most likely to cause us problems. Obviously, Callum Henry played for Aberdeen last season, and it was no surprise to anyone of an Aberdeen persuasion that he scored in the fixture the last time these 2 teams met. And it really wouldn't surprise me if he was to go on and score again on Wednesday night, because to sum up Aberdeen away from home, it is cheap goals that we're giving away. And I suppose, you know, it would probably require St Johnstone to be clinical. You know, I don't know if you've got the confidence in St Johnstone to be that on Wednesday night.
Well, I think we're not going to create many chances. So I think the chances we do create, we are going to have to be clinical. I think it's probably quite important as well. The problem we've got is we've not been playing well. So Dundee, although we got a point at Dundee were probably the better team in the first half. Didn't turn up really at all. We got a draw, probably a fair result. We're awful against St Mirren, and I think yesterday, okay in the first half, but not great in the second half against Livingston. Sorry. So yeah, I think more of the same really. I don't think it's going to be a pretty watch. I think as well, Aberdeen, when on song and doing well, usually take a decent support to Perth. Probably 3,000. I reckon on Wednesday night you'll be lucky there's 1,000 there, probably less.
Yeah, I think the supporters bus I'm a part of, I think we're half full for Wednesday night. I mean, I'm not going down myself. I just think, to coin the phrase that Michael Moonen used on last week's episode, it's kind of now really a glorified friendly for Aberdeen, with survival secured and thoughts turning to next season. We didn't even sell a bus out for the trip to Edinburgh at the weekend, and that's kind of really unheard of for those sort of games. So I think really kind of summing up the kind of apathy the fans have had towards this season, that we're very much looking forward to seeing the back of it. I'm sure Saints fans also feel the same about this season. Just obviously, they're just hoping that when the season does come to a conclusion, they're still a Premiership team.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've got two massive games in the playoffs to look forward to, I'd imagine. That's going to be against either Inverness or against Arbroath. I'd rather play Arbroath because the whole of Scottish football will be wanting Arbroath to win that match. Everyone wants Arbroath to win that. So if we Arbroath, then I'll be quite delighted with that.
Well, I was going to ask if there was a preference. Obviously you've had that game against Arbroath in the Scottish Cup, was it? That ended up going to extra time and penalties. So you do have that.
Right. So I think in terms of this match itself, Inverness are probably the form team in the coming into the playoffs. They've already knocked out Partick Thistle. They've then got obviously a tough two-legged affair against Arbroath. That's 4 matches they've played before they play us. So there could be a fatigue aspect for that, but also there could be full confidence after 2 really good results in terms of getting through 2 ties. So it doesn't play. It's going to be a really tough match. Really tough match. And if we get beaten in those matches, we deserve to go down. So
and I suppose it's interesting, like you said, it'll be if it is Arbroath, you will have the whole of Scottish football against you. But I suppose I should say before we part ways on this episode is the support that St Johnstone have had off the pitch, especially from the Fair City Unity supporters group, that seems to have just grown from strength to strength this season. Putting, as I actually saw your tweet, putting the likes of us, Hearts and Hibs to shame. A really impressive supporters group that, especially away from home and at home, have really got behind the team. I think it's fair to say, in what has been a not great season.
Oh, they have, absolutely. They've been the only positive aspect of this season is Fair City Unity, and I think people get very upset by the term ultras. I read yesterday, and lots of Dundee United fans commenting, Hearts fans commenting about, oh my God, just little boys. But ultimately, when you look on the continent and you see organisation, I'm talking flags the size of houses. I'm talking, flares and stuff like that shouldn't be in the grounds, but they are bringing that kind of ultra atmosphere to the ground, especially said. And they've been fantastic. They really have, and they're growing in numbers. And they are probably putting the big city clubs to shame. Because I think
I suppose, like, you look at North Bank, Motherwell Boys, all 3 really are putting a lot of clubs to shame outside of probably Green Brigade and Union Bears. But I just think it's great to see when a team is struggling that support is growing in numbers and is sticking with the team like that as well.
Long time, people could probably say that the support's been there, but on the pitch it definitely hasn't.
And now this season it's flipped almost.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you this evening and getting your thoughts ahead of the game on Wednesday night at Perth. I would say I wish you all the best for Wednesday, but I'd be lying. I'd obviously like to see Aberdeen pick up just that 3rd away win of the season. But for the playoffs, unless it's against Arbroath as well, good luck for that. And we'll maybe catch you next season on Red Tin.
Yeah, I'm sure so. Thanks very much.
That was the thoughts there of St Johnstone fan Greg Browning ahead of tomorrow night's game. And Philip, I suppose with Dundee playing tonight, St Johnstone almost have the potential luxury of knowing that their future in the Premiership, well, their playoff place is either secured or under threat. And if Dundee were to lose tonight, do you think that also, might affect their approach, as Greg kind of alluded to?
I think so. Well, obviously, like I'd mentioned last week about our game against Dundee, once obviously it was mathematically we were safe, there's just a sense of relief around the ground. So I think it'll be the same thing if Dundee lose tonight. I think St Johnstone fans on the squad will kind of have that little bit, okay, there's still a chance to go down, but that little bit of relaxation where they can just kind of play their own game. They're going to know that regardless of what they do, it's not going to affect how their season's, going to end in terms of the league. So it might make it a bit more of an open game. So I'll put 3-0 on a coupon, despite both you saying there's going to be a lack of goals. I'll put 3-0 on it. But no, hopefully it's a good game. Obviously, hopefully we get an away win. But I'm hoping it'll at least be a lot more entertaining than past couple.
Well, Aberdeen versus St Johnstone at Perth tends not to be entertaining affair, but will remain to be seen. And I think it's quite fitting the fact that he says Callum Hendry's been a ray of hope, and I just think it's almost guaranteed that if St Johnstone are to get a goal, tomorrow night it probably will come through him.
Most likely, yeah. I mean, it'll be like Stevie May all over again. It's I wouldn't be shocked if it was Callum Hendry that changed the game.
Yeah, and Greg says he wouldn't be surprised if they won, and obviously we recorded that little segment on Sunday, and maybe that sentence kind of rings home a bit more given the news that broke from Pittodrie earlier today that Christian Ramirez has been allowed to, I was going to say sent home, but I'll choose my words carefully, has been allowed to return to America to quote unquote recharge his batteries ahead of the new season. What are your thoughts on the decision to let Ramirez return, and also the fact that it is to recharge his batteries? Do you believe that from Jim Goodwin?
Not really. It's strange. I mean, I would love to go at my work and say, extra weeks on your leave, I need to recharge a bit. But he seemed confident in his presser that obviously Ramirez is going for his extra week back home and coming back next season. But to me, it makes no sense. I mean, there's only 5 days. Season ends on Sunday, fly out on Monday. I don't see what difference leaving now makes. I mean, even if he rejoins the team a week later, because we're not in Europe. Okay, we're in the group stage of the Cup. I can't imagine he would feature all too extensively in that.
No.
So it's a strange one to me. Whether he will be back for the sake of my leg and the cost of laser removal, I would really hope so. But yeah, it'll be weird to see how this one plays out.
I think, it was interesting that he kind of covers it by saying it's the most games Christian's ever played in a season, compared the workload what you'd have been used to over in America. I just can't help but feel the timing is just so strange, as you say. There's only 5 days to go till the end of the season. Marley Watkins did pull up with an injury on Saturday against Hibs. Goodwin confirming that he is fit enough to be in the squad, but there's always been question marks around Marley Watkins' full fitness in recent weeks, and even if he is fit enough again, quote unquote, for tomorrow night, is that 90 minutes worth? Michael Roos being told that he's free to find a new club at the end of the season, so young Liam Harvey's been called up to the squad. It's just, it's obviously a good thing that our safety has been confirmed. I've seen a lot of people making that our argument on social media tonight. What is the big outcry given that safety is secured? Should we really be getting wound up by this all? Because now is almost the time to play these youngsters in these sort of games.
Yeah, just going back to your point about obviously this being Ramirez's, most intense season effectively.
Mm-hmm.
That always confuses me when it comes to, especially a sport like football where you're an elite level athlete. I feel like you should be able to play like 1 game a week, maybe 2 a week max. It's not like you're in the NBA and you're playing 1 game every couple of days and flying across country. Like I can understand how that's pretty taxing. But no, like you say, it kind of leaves us in this weird situation where we've, really our most experienced striker that can potentially start looks like it's going to be McLennan, which I don't know. It's a weird one. Has he been great? No. Has he been good at under 21s when he's played striker? He's been all right. He's held his own. So it might be a revelation. We'd like to obviously see Liam Harvey getting a little run out. Whether he starts is, I can't really see it. But yeah, it's just, the whole situation's just confusing. Like I can't really sum it up because it just doesn't make much sense.
I suppose like a lot of things, and Joseph Marshall's in the comments on YouTube saying our timing's been pretty pathetic all season, and I suppose it kind of has been in a way with certain scenarios, and it's also, certain things around big games is, come out and maybe distracted from the squad, and kind of goes back to about certain players being told that, their future maybe doesn't lie at Pittodrie, and then being asked them to go and do a job. And I quite like your point on.
Oh, go on, Glenn. I was just about to say. I mean, it's the same as if I rocked into work next week and my boss went, 3 months, I'm planning on paying you off. I can guarantee I'd be doing the absolute bare minimum. Yeah. So, like that as well from Goodwin, just the timing of basically telling players their contracts are basically just going to be nothing at the end of the seasons. It's a strange way to go about it. I get he says that they probably respect his honesty, but I mean, I think there's sort of, especially in a relegation scrap, there's a time and a place to.
Yeah, and I kind of got that sense. I don't know. There's, I mentioned Ojo's defending, but I don't know if there are certain players. It's just my opinion. That are maybe down to tools slightly. I'm not sure if Ramirez is in that category, because a lot of people have certainly said he's certainly been lazy in recent weeks, but I still think the service up to him hasn't been great. Marley Watkins played in that lone striker, and he was pretty poor. Would people be saying the same about Marley Watkins if he'd played as much as Christian Ramirez this season and suddenly wasn't scoring in the amount of games that Christian Ramirez hasn't scored? And would people be saying that he's down tools as well? Or Skolsker in the comments is saying he's been sent home, our fans are hounding him and his family. Is there that kind of fine balance? Is Christian Ramirez, just because he's been so kind of popular amongst our sport and has done so much for the club in terms of his goal scoring this season, has that almost made him an easy target in a way?
I think so. I think it's the same as anyone. I mean, if you've got a player who's been in good form and suddenly they drop, it's always going to be the fact that the pitchforks will be out. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a case of resting his batteries, and also maybe just try to get him. Let's not play these last 2 games. You stay off Twitter, and all will be fine. You won't have people coming for you, and you might come back next season in a fresher mindset. Cause like I was saying, I mean, part of it's maybe down to confidence. Maybe Goodwin's just told him, look, come back next season, fresh slate, and try and get back to the form from earlier on in the year.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not of the belief that he's coming back, and the club, committed to being transparent to the fans. I think there should just be some transparency around this. Because we might find in a couple of weeks that we are told that he is not returning, and I don't see what difference would have made.
And I suppose the interesting thing as well is, I've seen people speaking about it earlier on Twitter, is, are we going to get a fee? And I suppose, because he still has, I think, 12 months on his contract. I think it was a 2-year he signed up to.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a case of the club just going, go get a club in America and we'll just sort of let you go. Or what might happen in the future. I think it'll be quite frustrating for the fans, obviously, if we don't get a fee, but as well, it would just seem a bit bonkers to the club as well to just let him walk effectively. I
know. It'll be interesting if he does walk, as you say. Where does that file under the recruitment policy? Letting a 15-goal season striker walk out of his contract after 1 year. Certainly one to kind of keep an eye on. One that's definitely been dividing opinion kind of all day on social media about whether you kind of agree with the decision to let him go. Now, I kind of feel maybe we should have just taken kind of the same approach as we've done with Calvin Ramsey. I'm not saying Calvin Ramsey has not got a niggle, but if we don't see him against St Johnstone tomorrow night, will we see him again on Sunday? Is he just being protected ahead of a big summer move? Because I think, was it Jim Goodwin said that if he did play and strained that muscle injury, then he could find himself out for 6 to 8 weeks, and obviously they don't want that. So could we not just claim that Ramirez had an injury for a week, instead of just being sent back? It just reeks of something that we're not being told the truth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I suppose it was the same as just prior to the Constein contract situation coming out. Unless you're upfront and open about it, all you're going to have is everybody, coming up with their theories of what's going on and, their opinions on the matter. And like you say, the club's made claims of being transparent, and it's been very, very rare that we've kind of seen that around certain issues this season. So, yeah, I mean, the whole situation's weird. At least the Ramsey one, we're kind of aware of. Probably he's away. Whereas the Ramirez one, it's just up in the air, which I think just frustrates people more than anything.
Yeah, 100%. And Titch McGraw is in the comments as well, saying play the youngsters. As you'll agree to. Liam Harvey in the squad. Interesting to see if he gets any minutes. Also returning to the squad on Wednesday night is Matty Kennedy, a player that Jim
Matty Kennedy, man.
Exactly, a player that Jim Goodwin has rated highly in his time as St Mirren manager. Obviously, trying to get him in when he was in charge of the Buddies. I'm not sure, again, a player that we'll see him gain any minutes. As you've alluded to, Connor McLennan, we might see him feature, another player potentially set to leave the club in the summer. But my favourite comment about Connor McLennan that I saw online today was that he's got tennis rackets for feet. So interesting to see how well his ball control is if he does feature in the side.
Yeah, I always just feel with McLennan, I think the most frustrating thing with him is I feel like his feet just work quicker than his brain does.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be great, you'll see him and he'll like whip out like a bunch of step overs and you think, oh, this could be something good. And then he'll just like flick one out of play as he tries to run forward in a straight line, and you go, how have you physically managed to do the most difficult part of it and then just make an absolute meal of it 2 seconds later? Same as final delivery. You think, you're in a spot where any sort of wise winger would just pick their head up and cut it back. And he somehow just runs out of the box again. I go, I don't know what goes on in his head. I think it's like the Symbols monkey, from The Simpsons. Sometimes that's what I think happens when he's like one-on-one.
But I suppose the other kind of change to the team will come around with no Ross McCrory, obviously picking up a concussion after blocking Josh Doig's shot with his head. I fairly expect Dante Polvara, as we said earlier, to retain his place. But with no Ross McCrory, does that leave the door open for Funso Ojo to return into the Aberdeen team, or will we see Teddy Jenks potentially return? Obviously, the goal scorer on our last visit to Perth, or I guess will Ramsey make his miraculous recovery from that niggle and feature now that we are down a Ross McCrory?
I don't know. I suppose it's weird. I think it all depends on if Ramsey plays or not. Obviously, if Ramsey plays, I can see it being sort of Barron, Ferguson, Polvara midfield.
Yeah.
With Ojo playing at right back if Ramsey doesn't. So I don't know. I think it'll be a strange team. I think it'll be a team you could somewhat predict parts of. But I think there'll definitely be some weird ones in that starting 11 tomorrow night.
Yeah, I don't really know what to predict, but just as we're away to come off air tonight, Dundee have taken the lead against Hibs. Niall McGinn on the score sheet, which sees, as it stands, obviously only 8 minutes into the game, Dundee reduced the gap to St Johnstone to 3 points, but there is still 6 goals of a swing required. So I'm sure they'll be expecting
Bristol-esque.
Yeah, exactly.
Tonight.
Yeah, they'll be channeling their inner Bristol Rovers, or was it Morton Hamilton a few years back that nearly scuppered Dundee in their promotion?
I think so.
That infamous 10-2 game. But interesting to see what happens at Perth tomorrow night from an Aberdeen persuasion. Will we see more of these youngsters bled into the team ahead of Sunday's final game? I'll be back on Thursday looking ahead to the game on Sunday. Will probably be another live episode given the short turnaround between the game on Wednesday and the weekend. Philip may or may not be joining me. And Who knows about Calum? Depends if he has fully recharged his own batteries before rejoining me. But Philip, a pleasure getting you back on again, and really enjoyed our conversation tonight.
Yeah, no, pleasure as always. It's always a pleasure to be invited on by yourself. So maybe one day it'll be me and Calum, and you'll be the one that's away gallivanting around Europe.
Yeah, well, we'll see if that's ever needed. But thanks again, and thanks to all of you that have tuned into the episode tonight, interacted via the comments on YouTube. Remember to leave a like on the video, hit subscribe if you are new to the channel or catching up. We are really close to that 800 subscribers mark. It would be brilliant if we could reach that by the weekend's game. And if you are listening to the episode. Remember to subscribe and follow wherever you are listening on audio as well. Until next time.